This year, the spring and summer rains failed, leaving parched earth and scrawny cattle. Bertakan Ali's tears are for the son she buried a few days ago. His name was Abdul Mohammed. He was 5. His grave crowned with freshly picked vines. Malnutrition now stalks northern Ethiopia.
When he died, I felt I had lost everything. My family buried his body. Everyone is in hardship. We all have so little to eat because there was no harvest this season. Everyone is suffering.
The UN says in one area, 2 babies have been dying every day. Bertakan, one of many mothers, left inconsolable. At this well, things are getting desperate. People travel here from miles around to give their livestock a drink. But the water table has fallen to almost nothing. 30, maybe 40 meters down, it's full of silt and mud. The well almost dry. Help is arriving, too late for some, and in too small a quantity for the scale of the emergency. At this food distribution center, 2,000 people wait for rations that will last them a month. In all, more than 8 million people across an area roughly the size of the UK now need food aid. The drought has reduced yields from this year's harvest by as much as 90%. The village of Keugaria, population 5,000, sits in the heart of the drought zone. This substantial watering hole was a lifeline for livestock in the village. Now it is bone dry. In fact, the moisture content of the soil in this area is the lowest it's ever been. Many here remember the 1984 famine that spawned the global humanitarian response and the Band-Aid single. Abaraweldu, now in his late 60s, has lived here all his life.
Although this drought has just started, it's going to get worse. It's already really severe. Some people have died of hunger. Others are sick in their beds. Right now, it's just like 1984.
The government is in much better shape than 30 years ago to cope. Officials were in the village today, but more international help is needed.
We went from 4.5 to 8.5 million people needing food aid in just the last 2 months. We know it's going to get worse soon. We know that the needs next year are going to be far higher and far more entrenched. And despite our massive best efforts, including remarkable efforts by the government, this is not enough.
By early next year, local food reserves will run out, leaving as many as 15 million people relying on aid, more than need help in Syria. Bertakan has already paid a heavy price for the cruelty of Mother Nature. Who'll be next? Clive Myrie, BBC News in northern Ethiopia.
The history of agriculture is often seen as a constant battle against nature in trying to end famine and hunger. Even today, millions of people are subjected to environmental changes and challenges that reduce or eliminate natural food and water sources for extended periods of time. Humans, out of need, have developed agricultural methods to limit the extent of damage incurred by these changes. However, agriculture has an impact on nature which may further exacerbate the environmental component which creates the drought or famine to begin with. Aloha kako, o Craig ko'oinoa. My name is Craig Opie, and today I will be speaking about the social construction of nature, the impact of agriculture on nature, and the ethical concerns of agricultural developments to combat famine. Environmental historians and ecologists typically argue the social construction of nature and the environmental impact of agriculture to identify the ethical boundaries of agricultural changes. Social constructionism is an awareness that reality is based on assigned value or identities. There are no facts that just exist without the idea being created by humanity. Two divergent beliefs that exist within the social construction of nature are anthropocentricism and environmentalism. Anthropocentrism is straightforward and unapologetic form, characterizes most conservative critiques of environmentalism, which simply assert that the world, which includes deer, trees, rivers, was created for human benefit and that virtual any human use is therefore justified. The most traditional versions of these claims usually rest on theological notions, such as humanity's creation and the image of God. Overall, the ways humans see and value nature are largely influenced by their cultural beliefs. Some believe that nature is understood to be undomesticated wilderness with the exclusion of humans or human impact, whereas others believe that nature is the undeveloped wilderness of which humans can coexist. It is important for us to facilitate these discussions and debates to better understand the overall conception and definition of nature. One thing most can agree on, however, is the impact of agriculture on the environment. It is widely believed that prior to the Neolithic era, approximately 10,000 BCE, humans mostly relied upon hunting and gathering for food. Towards the end of the last ice age, humans began using polished stone tools to assist in farming, which marked the beginning of the agricultural revolution. The prime location for farming at this time was located in Mesopotamia, which is a boomerang-shaped area located in the Middle East due to its rich soil. Mesopotamian farmers began using domesticated animals to provide a consistent supply of meat, milk, and wool, while also domesticating plants such as wheat, lentils, muskmelon, and chickpeas. Unfortunately, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers underwent seasonal flooding and drought. Mesopotamia people dug canals to reduce the effects of flooding while allowing water to their crops year-round. This development in agriculture led to a surplus of food resources, which paved the way for specialization labor, governmental development, and population growth. Rising populations are accompanied with a requirement to develop land to support that population. In Mesopotamia, there weren't many trees or mountains to protect the villages, so settlers continuously developed canal systems and used the mud to build walls for protection and houses. This marked the first major impact on the environment by humans. Fast forward 12,000 years, and the progressive agricultural developments have resulted in reduced forests and trees, increased CO2 production, the decrease in animal population due to reduced habitats and hunting, and an overall rise in global temperatures, which pose the threat of global flooding and death of countless sea creatures. But one thing has remained the same: hunger and famine still exist. Hunger is seen by nearly all as an evil. The fact that a lot of food in the world is not fairly or equally distributed is widely considered as one of the most shameful things amongst humanity. Ethically, we are now faced with a choice. Do we allow agricultural developments that could potentially save world hunger, despite the environmental impact caused by agriculture? Some argue that reducing our food waste can sufficiently combat the issues of world hunger, therefore reducing the amount of intensification required from agriculture. However, the United States Department of Agriculture claims that massive 30 to 40% of the U.S. food supply is lost at the retail and consumer levels, while the USDA and the EPA have combined efforts in reducing food loss. The solution is dependent on the general population reducing food waste, which cannot be regulated or controlled adequately. Another proposal has the opposite position and includes increasing the overall food production to reduce costs and increase availability to suffering nations and lower classes of wealth. Perhaps a combination of both methods to reduce waste and increase agriculture is the best means to combat hunger. Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, believed to know your enemy, you must become your enemy. While I don't think everyone needs to live through a famine to understand hunger, I do feel that we need to acknowledge famine, study the impact of famine, and evaluate lives lost due to famine before we rule out agricultural intensification as a means to combat hunger. Thank you for your time, and mahalo.